A road in Fife, May 2022, one car, pulled over. The driver is calm, completely calm. That detail matters, because calm, in that moment, isn't innocence, it's experience. Police Scotland work the vehicle. A drugs dog moves along the body of the car, slows, alerts, beneath the passenger seat. Behind a professionally fitted panel, 5 kilograms of heroin, a burner phone. The driver doesn't flinch, doesn't argue. He's 64 years old, Cardiff address, and he knows exactly how this works. He used to be a police officer, so why was he here, on a Scottish road, carrying heroin for a Liverpool gang? Stephen Creasey wasn't born into this. That's the first thing to understand. He came from service, the Royal Navy first, a young man who signed up, who followed orders, who understood discipline, structure, chain of command. Then, the police force, Police Constable Stephen Creasey, the details of which force aren't on public record. But the fact of it is, he wore a uniform, he enforced the law. He was, for a significant portion of his life, the person you called when something went wrong. Think about what that means. Years of being on the right side of the line. Then he settled in Cardiff, Grangetown, 7 Allerton Street, a residential street in a working-class part of the city. Nothing remarkable about the address, nothing remarkable about the man, on the surface. Retired now from public service. And somewhere in that transition, something shifted. We don't know exactly when the approach came. We don't know what was said or how it was framed. What we know is that a Liverpool-based, organized crime group needed something specific, not muscle, not a dealer, not someone young and reckless who'd draw attention at a motorway service station. They needed a courier, experienced, calm, someone who understood how police operations worked, someone who wouldn't panic at a roadside stop, someone who looked, on paper and in person, like the last person carrying 5 kilograms of heroin. He wasn't an obvious criminal, he was the perfect one. And that, more than anything else in this case, is what makes it unsettling. Not the drugs, not the network, the choice. A deliberate, informed, experienced choice, made by a man who knew exactly what he was getting into. Because you don't spend years in the police without understanding consequences. He understood them, and he drove anyway, somewhere between the uniform and the burner phone. A decision was made. Now, let's pull back. Because Creasey didn't build this, he joined it. And what he joined was already running, smoothly, profitably. At the top, Christopher Brannan, 38 years old, Sandeman Road, Walton, Liverpool. Brannan was the architect, the man who made the calls that set everything else in motion. He collected heroin wholesale, bulk quantities. Then he worked out how to move it. Beside him, Stephen Hopkins, 59 years old, Fazakerley, Liverpool, co-lead, equal weight in the operation. Hopkins was convicted in December 2022. He never made it to sentencing, died before he could face a court. Justice, in his case, arrived in a different form. But the network he helped build kept going long enough to destroy everyone else in it. Below Brannan and Hopkins, the distribution layer, this is where Creasey sat. Along with Kevin Thompson in Lochgelly, Fife, Christopher Heaney in Anstruther, also Fife, Geoffrey Hickson in Blyth, Northumberland. Look at that. Geography for a moment. Liverpool, Cardiff, Scotland, Northumberland. This wasn't a local operation. This was a supply chain, stretching the length of Britain. Brannan and Hopkins sourced the heroin at the top. Creasey drove it from Cardiff to Liverpool to collect, then north, into Scotland. Others moved it east, into Northumberland. Each courier a link in a chain that connected the wholesale supply in Liverpool to end users scattered across the country. Over 70 kilograms moved in total. At street level, that's approximately £7 million. Distributed across the United Kingdom, by a network most people had never heard of, operating out of ordinary houses, on ordinary streets, in cities that had no idea. And Creasey's specific role within it? He was the road, the long, reliable, experienced road between Liverpool and wherever the drugs needed to go next. His value wasn't ambition, it was dependability. Let's talk about how it actually worked, because the mechanics of this operation matter. They tell you something about the level of planning involved. Creasey's run had a shape. It started in Cardiff. his home, 7 Allerton Street. He'd leave, drive north to Liverpool. That's roughly 200 miles, 3 hours on a good day. In Liverpool, he collected. Not a handshake in a car park, not improvised. A transaction between professionals, wholesale heroin, kilogram quantities. Then he drove, north again, past Manchester, through the Lake District, into Scotland, Fife, 400 miles from Liverpool, 6 hours of motorway, just a man in a car. Nothing to see, nothing to flag, except what was hidden beneath the passenger seat, because the car wasn't ordinary. The hide was professionally installed. It wasn't a bag under a blanket, wasn't drug stuffed beneath a spare tire. Someone, skilled, experienced, paid, had modified that vehicle deliberately, built a concealed compartment, fitted it cleanly, designed it to survive a search, a casual one at least, the kind a patrol officer runs on a routine stop. Open the door, check the obvious places, see nothing, move on. And that calculation was Creasey's entire strategy. He wasn't relying on luck. He was relying on knowledge, his knowledge of how stops work, of what officers look for, of the difference between a thorough search and a surface one. He knew the procedure because he'd followed it for years. So he drove with a confidence most couriers don't have. He thought the hide was enough. He thought his composure was enough. He thought his background, his ordinariness, his age, his clean record was enough. He was wrong about one thing: the dog. A police drugs dog worked the vehicle on that road in Fife, and dogs don't read number plates. They don't see age or composure or former service records. They follow one thing: scent. And the scent was there, beneath the passenger seat, behind the professionally fitted panel, inside the hide that was built to beat a human search. The dog found it in minutes: 5 kilograms of heroin, 1 kilogram of adulterant, a burner phone, 1 alert, 1 animal, and the most carefully constructed run of Stephen Creasey's criminal career was over. Did you know professionally installed drug hides like this are more common in UK vehicles than most people realize? Drop a comment. Does that surprise you? Now here's the detail that changes everything. Tarian ROCU didn't stumble onto Creasey. They weren't passing through Fife. They requested that stop. A specialist serious and organised crime unit based in southern Wales had been building intelligence, watching the pattern, mapping the movement, and when they had enough, they picked up the phone to Police Scotland, 400 miles away, and said, "Stop that car." That distinction matters enormously. This wasn't luck. This was the end of a process, an intelligence-led operation that had already decided where Creasey would be and when. The stop on that Scottish road wasn't the beginning of the investigation. It was the moment the investigation became visible. Now, the burner phone. Creasey had it on him when he was stopped. A second device, kept separate from his personal phone, used exclusively for contact with the network. To investigators, it wasn't just a phone. It was a map, numbers, names, patterns of contact, times, frequency. Every call, every message, a thread connecting Creasey to the people above him, and from those people to others. Tarian pulled on every thread. By the end of 2022, raids, coordinated, simultaneous, across 5 locations: Cardiff, Liverpool, Anstruther, Lochgelly, Blyth. Officers moved at the same time across multiple jurisdictions, and what they found at those addresses told the full story: heroin, cocaine, opium, cannabis grows, cutting agents, expensive jewelry, financial records, and metal molds for pressing loose powder into blocks. An equipment that doesn't exist in a casual operation, the kind that tells you this was industrial, this was a business, running across the length of the country, hidden inside ordinary houses on ordinary streets. Now, the guilty pleas. Every main defendant, every single one, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply heroin. None of them made it to trial. Not Brannan, not Creasey, not Heaney, Hickson, or Thompson. They looked at what Tarian had built: the phone data, the raid evidence, the seized drugs, the financial records, and they made the only calculation left to them: don't fight it. There was nothing to fight. The evidence left no room, not even a crack. And so, one by one, they pleaded. September 4th, 2024. Cardiff Crown Court. 5 men. 1 dock. Years of investigation compressed into a single morning. The sentences came one by one. Christopher Brannan, 38 years old. Walton, Liverpool, the architect. The man who sourced the heroin, built the network, and set everything else in motion. 18 years and 5 months. The longest sentence in the room, because the weight of what everyone else did started with him. Jeffrey Hickson, 61 years old, Blyth, Northumberland, a distributor at the far end of the chain, 10 years and 4 months. Christopher Heaney, 47. Anstruther, Fife, another courier link in the same chain, 9 years and 5 months. Kevin Thompson, 45, Lochgelly, Fife, 6 years and 10 months. And then there was Stephen Hopkins, co-lead alongside Brannan, convicted in December 2022. He never sat in that dock on sentencing day. He was already dead. Whatever justice looked like for Hopkins, it didn't look like this room. Kirsty Murphy, Brannan's partner, she didn't move drugs, she moved money, through her own bank account, laundering the proceeds of everything her partner had built. 6 months, suspended for 18. She walked out of that courtroom, and then Stephen Creasey, 67 years old, 7 Allerton Street, Grangetown, Cardiff, former Royal Navy, former police officer, professional courier for a Liverpool heroin network. The judge considered everything: his age, his background, his role, the quantity he was caught carrying, the runs he'd made before that one, 12 years and 7 months. Pause on that number, not because it's the largest in the room, it isn't, but because of what it means for the man receiving it. 67 years old, 12 years and 7 months. You do the arithmetic. He will be nearly 80 years old if he serves the full term. This isn't a sentence a younger man receives and rebuilds from. This is a sentence that consumes what's left. The years that were supposed to be quieter, not taken by illness or misfortune, taken by a choice, made on a Cardiff street, at some point in his 60s, when he decided the money was worth it. 57 years and 2 months, combined, across 5 men, for 70 kilograms of heroin, 7 million pounds of it, distributed across the United Kingdom, by a network that thought distance was protection. It wasn't. Do you think 12 years is proportionate for a courier, even one moving 5 kilograms at a time? Let me know below. The sentence isn't the end. It never is. In 2025, months after the courtroom emptied, proceeds of Crime Act hearings began. PIOCA, the part of the process most true crime coverage skips past, but it matters. Because the law doesn't just want these men in cells, it wants back what they took. The hearings examined what each defendant had actually benefited from the conspiracy, and what assets, if any, remain to recover. The numbers are instructive. Jeffrey Hickson, assessed to have benefited £16,706 from the operation. Available assets at the time of the hearing, £8,861. Ordered to pay £8,000, or face 4 additional months in custody. Christopher Heaney, benefited £125,876. Assets found, £42,229. Ordered to pay £42,000. Default, 18 months additional. Stephen Creasey, benefited approximately £16,000. Ordered to pay £8,000. Now, look at those figures honestly. Against 7 million pounds of street value heroin, they are modest, almost startlingly so. The money moved through this network long before anyone was watching. Most of it gone, spent, hidden, untraceable by the time POCA proceedings began. But the principle matters more than the amount. The Proceeds of Crime Act exists to communicate one thing clearly. Criminal profit is not yours to keep, not during the sentence, not after it. The law followed these men into their cells, and when the doors eventually open, it will be waiting outside. So, what does this case actually tell us? 3 things. Clean, no padding. First, intelligence-led policing works. Tarian didn't stumble onto Stephen Creasey. They didn't get a tip-off, didn't get lucky on a routine patrol. They built a picture, quietly, carefully, over months. And when that picture was complete, they picked up the phone to Police Scotland. 400 miles away, and said, "Stop that car. That's not luck, that's craft." The kind that doesn't make headlines on its own, but puts people in cells. Second, the most dangerous couriers are the ones who look trustworthy. Creasey's background wasn't a liability to the network. It was the point. His age, his record, his composure at a roadside stop, his understanding of exactly what officers look for and what they don't. All of it made him valuable, not despite who he used to be, because of it. That should be uncomfortable. It is meant to be. Third, when evidence is built properly, there is no trial to fight. Every main defendant pleaded guilty. Brannan, Creasey, Heaney, Hickson, Thompson. Not one of them took it to a jury, because the evidence Tarian assembled left no credible defense standing, no gap, no ambiguity, nothing to work with. The guilty pleas weren't remorse. They were mathematics. Detective Constable Reese Richards of Tarian ROCU said it plainly after sentencing. This organized crime group spread misery across the United Kingdom for their own financial gain. Justice caught up. That's the summary. Not dramatic, not embellished, just accurate. And here is mine. Stephen Creasey spent decades learning how the system works. Then he spent 2 years using that knowledge against it. One road in Scotland ended both. If you made it this far, thank you. This was a case built on one mistake, one dog, one alert, on a quiet road in Fife, and it brought down a network that stretched the length of Britain. If this was worth your time, like the video, subscribe if you want more cases like this, and drop a comment, whether it's on the sentence, the method, the man, or anything else that stayed with you. I'll see you in the next one.